Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Happy Design Chicago. As Zlata and I talked about it, Design Chicago is actually one of our favorite events here at the Mart. And each year we get so very excited to do it all over again and to celebrate Chicago design. The preparations usually start about 6 months ahead of time, and today is the culmination of all the planning. And we get to host these wonderful design and architecture professionals. So to our panelists, thank you for being here and accepting our invitation. To Zlata, thank you for helping us put this presentation together. To our neighbor, Vika Stone, thanks for sharing your space with us. And to all of you, if you have any questions about our custom cabinetry products and services, you can talk to us afterwards. Hope you had a chance to try some of those Polish pastries that we have prepared for you. If not, you can get a chance after the presentation is over. Okay, with that, I think we're ready to begin. Okay, Zlata, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Zlata Naumowski. I'm a design journalist. I've been published in the New York Times, House Beautiful, Better Homes and Gardens, and eldecor.com, among others. I'd like to welcome you to the New Style Cabinets showroom, and thank you to Alina Guzaska for having us in this gorgeous space. And then I'd like to introduce our panelists. To my left, immediate left, is Jasmin Reese.
Hello.
And she's principal of Jasmin Reese Interiors, and I've interviewed her a couple times, actually. And if you pick up the Design Chicago magazine that's floating around, there's a story in which I interview Jasmin in there. And then we have Elizabeth Krueger, who I've also interviewed. Elizabeth Krueger Design, and she has experience not only in new construction, but in historical renovations. And then we have Jessica LaGrange of Jessica LaGrange Interiors. I live in LaGrange, but it's so much chicer to say LaGrange.
I answer to anything.
Like it's so much chicer
I
to
say it both ways.
LaGrange, and her portfolio includes projects that embrace a wide range of periods and styles, and she is a veteran of the architecture firm Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. And lastly, we have Michael Abraham of Michael Abraham Architecture, who's designed some of the most beautiful lake houses I've ever seen. Like, that's my goal in life, is to have you design a lake house for me. Hopefully we can make that happen one day. So.
No. As long as the fishing's good there, I'm in.
Right? So among these four designers and architects, you've probably covered every design period and style out there. So how would you define traditional design?
I'll start. I think,
Sure.
I hate to use the word traditional, I like to use the word classic.
Okay.
I think classic means timeless, elegant, comfortable. Traditional sounds like grandma's house or something like that. I think it's more classic. What do you think,
I love
Elizabeth?
that.
Yeah.
I love it. What was the question? How would
How
you
do you
define it?
traditional design?
I think when you walked into a classic home, certainly by the architectural elements, the millwork, the moldings, and I think what is fun that we've got to do some work on is how do you bring a classic home to a little bit more of a modern state. So I think that's a fun place to sort of explore. So I think traditional means something different to everybody.
What would you say, Jasmine?
Well, for me, traditional can be good or bad, but traditional is basically something that you recognize. So it's a piece that's been used over and over again that you recognize, and that's the way it becomes traditional for me.
You could be a piece from the 60s, or
Right.
it doesn't necessarily have to be brown furniture.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So is traditional design relevant today? Does it have a place in today's interiors?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That was my first answer too. Absolutely.
Yeah, I almost
Yeah.
feel like when you're looking at what's being published now, you're seeing quite a bit more of like classic interiors. It kind of moved away from beige, clean line, sleek to
Thank God.
warmer architecture and more traditional lines.
What are some of the hallmarks of that sort of traditional design, Michael, especially with architecture?
Of traditional design? I mean, I have a hard time with that word, kind of like Jessica, the same thing. It's a difficult word, traditional, because traditional, some of the things we consider traditional used to be modern, right? Like, go back as far as you want.
Or I don't know, or yeah, go back.
Well, no, go back as far as you want to the early 1900s, and shingle style or prairie style was
Yeah.
avant-garde. That was modern, and now we consider it traditional, but,
Right.
so it's more about how we solve the problems, I think, than, let me put it this way, I think there's a difference between traditional and historical,
Right, right.
right?
But
So-
I guess I don't think that traditional has negative connotations.
Well, it's
No,
funny,
because I think it's-
I looked up the word traditional just before in Google, and
And what does it say?
these were just the first words that
Okay.
came up. Conventional, standard, regular, conservative, customary, and run-of-the-mill.
Oh.
So all of those words, I would look at everybody,
Yeah,
the work that
that's
everybody
another good
here has
one.
done, and I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think anybody would
definitely
say,
not
I'm really
run-of-the-mill.
going to start out, if I could do something really
Yeah.
run-of-the-mill, then we've really succeeded.
Right.
So
And
that's
your
why-
clients would be really happy about that, huh?
And that's why I think it kind of sometimes, I think some of the solutions
Yeah.
that we have all done are as modern as anything
Yeah.
that you see, I guess what,
So can you give me an example of something that you did that sort of has traditional roots, I guess, that you made modern?
it all does. I think that's the best part
Yeah.
about it. Everything we do comes from traditional roots. We're not inventing
Right.
or reinventing anything. So it's great to go back to all these different styles and periods and modernize the way we think about it. From
Right.
the architecture to the furniture to the artwork, everything.
Would you say that it's more of like a style, a traditional style of?
No, because
And
traditional used to be like a
adornments?
regional thing, right? So it was traditional, what was traditional in Ireland wasn't traditional in Germany or the US and different, but now with the internet and Instagram and all that, everything is available to us. So there's kind of all these mix of traditions now. Or
Right.
traditional things to more modern uses.
Right.
As a writer, how would you define traditional?
I like what Jessica said about it being timeless and classic, but I think what you all do today is you build on that and make it a functional, but also maybe add a modern look to it. Like these cabinets to me are both traditional and modern, right? Looking at the paneling over here, it's made out of wood, it's just a simple, clean, recessed panel, and to me, that's sort of both, it's traditional and modern.
I have a question. We submitted some photographs are you going to be running them by any chance? Because I think okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, we were
Because I think
going-
those are good examples, at least of everyone's work, of how you can
Yeah.
have a traditional shell, with a
Right.
beautiful classic apartment or home, but interject more contemporary furnishings and still call it
Right.
classical.
But what are maybe, I guess, some examples of like, what is a traditional piece of furniture that you continually use, or a traditional material, like marble is traditional, right? But you can render it in a very modern way.
I think you see it honed now instead of polish. It looks fresher and cleaner that way. Or I think a lot of sofas that we still use have traditional lines but can be used in a contemporary setting. And I don't know, finishes architecturally. Moldings and
Right.
trims. And
Yeah, it's more, maybe what's more modern about it is how it's made, or the materials we could use that were very difficult to do previously.
I think for a specific piece of furniture, those old porter chairs, the ones that are really, really tall, those were used in the medieval times, for people that were guarding the house. Now you can, you'll see it in a picture in a few minutes, but now it's placed at the head of the table, and it's like for a king's chair. So it's these pieces that are used, and it's a traditional piece because it's been used for hundreds, thousands of years, and now it's being reinterpreted, so.
And reinvented.
Right.
Is there an example of something that you used, that you reinvented to make it more modern, for example? Either a piece of furniture or a treatment or a
we've
finish?
done a crystal chandelier in one of these photos that is very traditional, but it's done with rock crystal, and it just feels fresher and less traditional as
Right.
rock crystal and more freeform shapes, but it has a nod, I think, to the traditional and the classical.
Yeah.
So I think things like that can be, actually, this is the room. And then the wall covering, it's it's an embroidered wall covering of birch trees, but it's a very old school technique, but done in a very clean and contemporary way. But I think that chandelier looks fresh because it's out of rock crystal. If it was out of Waterford crystal, it would look like
Right.
grandma's chandelier. But
Right,
this
right.
looks a little bit more modern and fresh.
Right.
So again, a
It's-
very classic apartment over on Lakeshore Drive, but kind of reinterpreted.
Yeah, and with that table underneath.
Yeah,
too,
with the
and
Carl
those
Springer
chairs.
table and the Carl Springer chairs, again, from the 60s. This
Yeah.
client was a collector of things, and, how do you make it fresh?
What is the material on that table? Is that parchment?
It's goat skin.
Goat skin?
Vellum or goat skin.
Oh.
And
And
it was
the
an interesting
chairs, too.
story. It was a small round table, and they wanted it big enough for the dining room, so we had a local craftsman make a piece for the center to expand it, and was able to match the rest of the pieces, and make it look like it all goes. But
That's
again, I
so
think,
cool.
I think you can get the feel of traditional with draperies, but they're thick and
Right.
luxurious, but they're not fussy.
Would you consider yourself a traditional designer?
I'd say classic. I don't
Classic,
like that.
yeah.
Traditional,
Yeah.
now that you said all those
Yeah.
words, that's not good.
Okay. Okay.
Old lady.
Yeah,
Okay. Right.
But I think that's a classic interior, but
Right.
yet fresh
and-
feeling.
Right, and here with the simple
Right.
window treatments, the sheer underneath. with
But
the
yet it's got
drapery
Gracie wall
panels.
covering on it, which is very
Yeah.
old school, but a
Right.
Murano chandelier, I mean, it's the mix.
It's the
Feels
mix,
super fresh.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But-
Do you have a formula when you're designing rooms or houses, like, okay, I want 60% to be more like modern and clean line furnishings and 40% more traditional? No?
I think what's
Okay.
important is listening to the client and working with, I love working with existing pieces that a client
Yeah.
has. The home needs to look like them, not like
Yeah.
us. I don't have I know certain designers have particular styles, but I
Right.
think it's kind of interesting to reinvent the
Right.
wheel and work with the things that they have and give
Yeah.
them a fresh look that represents them. So these chairs are vintage antique chairs, but it's with a table that's very modern from Blackman Cruise. I mean, who would ever think of putting those things together?
Right,
But
stunning.
those chairs were important to them.
And that light fixture above? that's
No,
really
it's a
makes the
Bertoya
car-
sculpture.
Oh, that is so
And then a
chic.
glass fireplace, so, in
Yeah.
a formal paneled room. So I think it's
Yeah.
finding the balance and mix. It's traditionally
Right.
yet
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
modern.
important, it's important to challenge, well, not important, but to challenge clients with things they may not have thought of, because you're
Right.
bringing that to them, they would have
That's why
never
they hire us,
gone
right?
there.
Right. Right. And it was interesting, Jessica, you brought up working with clients' existing pieces. Have any of you had an experience where someone brought you something and you're like, oh, boy,
Oh, yeah.
like, how are we going to do this? You want to talk about that?
What I usually say is we need to throw them a couple of bones here and there, and so let's pick what we feel like are the best pieces, and we don't have to go for everything to start with, but let's just make it feel like a win-win. And then we can tell them the bad news later.
So you don't come right out and tell them you're going
Not
to put it in the
always,
basement?
no. I'm like, they don't know that that's going to be in the basement
Yeah.
yet, but we know.
Right.
We had a client that had a collection of Yadro figurines,
Oh,
okay?
I
Probably a
remember
designer's
that,
worst
yeah.
nightmare, Yadros, okay?
Right.
But they were important to her, and they were scattered around her other house in little, nooks and crannies. And I
Yeah.
said, why don't we group them all together? We put them in an armoire with chicken wire, so they were kind of
Yeah.
diffused, and you didn't, and the colors worked in the room, but yeah, you really can't see them, but they were together, and that was important. Or we had another client that had sentimental collection from Africa that they collected on their honeymoon, and this is a cottage house up in Indiana on the lake, real cottagey vibe, and the African artwork just didn't go, as much as we use African things or pieces, but we're still fighting about it. We haven't quite found a home for it yet, but we get that all the time.
Yeah.
When, one of our interiors, it's going to be on the screen, it's bright fuchsia, but we had to work with their existing dining table, existing chairs, and the sideboard. And, we started in several other rooms, and they said, can you make this room work? And I said, okay, but we're going to have to go bananas with the rest of the room. So that's the existing chairs, the existing table, existing sideboard. So everything else is new. But, the rug is so bright, it's just like, it's just really full of life. We added drama with the end tables. I helped them curate and collect some art to give it kind of like a really collected feel. And in person, if you saw this paint color, it's just blinding. It's just really, really rich.
It glows from the street, Jasmine
Yes.
told me. So they don't have window treatments in certain parts of the house. And they said when they're walking down the street, they can see the color glowing through the streets.
Yes.
Yes, and those were the porter chairs too, in that
Yes.
other image that she had mentioned previously.
I think we've all had situations where we've had to sell our soul a little bit, right? And do things that we can all.
To be honest, it's like it is that
their
part of the
home.
relationship and it's their home. And like you said, you want them to feel like it's a reflection of them, not of you. So,
We had to do winged dragons carved on a fireplace once. Okay,
Oh,
that's not the
wow.
room you photograph. You get
Right,
other
right.
shots, but it was important to them. It told a story for them, and I think it's all about telling a story. So, whatever.
Well, okay, so I guess to me, throughout COVID, right, this has affected all of us. And I feel like everybody was just, really nesting at home and wanting that warm, cozy, and inviting feeling. So to me, I'm going to call that traditional, but I know you guys don't seem to like that word. But how do you think, it's impacted the way clients think of the design of their homes?
Yeah, I mean, they were home for, months and months, looking at their space, and it's like, they're not using the money for vacation, so they had a chance to really reinvent themselves in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The den that we used to do that nobody ever used gets used now,
Oh, right.
the home office.
I think it's taken us back to more classic layouts and traditional living rooms, dining rooms, dens, not this big open floor plan anymore. I think people are at home more and they want more private spaces. We're creating nooks in rooms, reading nooks. People want the more formal layouts.
Right.
So they can close the doors to the dining room, or their pocket doors, or their things so you can section off areas now.
I would
Right.
also say too, it seems like people want to have like a country club vibe at their home with
Oh.
like the sport court, the game room, like that in a way has been revived. I don't know if
I
that's
agree.
true or not, but it seems like, okay, if we're going to be home, how do we make this fun? How can the kids run around 12 months?
That's why I need that lake house, so,
They're gonna
I
entertain-
can get all
they
those
entertain more at home, I
amenities.
think, get
Yeah.
more people over. We had a client on Astor Street that bought a home, we were talking about this, and they wanted to take the top floor, which was a former ballroom not being used, and they turned it into their private club,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
was,
Like I'd like
Yeah,
to
who
go over
would-
there.
yeah.
So
They
then
branded
you've
it,
seen
there's
a way
name,
people
there's
are sort
everything.
of reusing, or reassigning different rooms for different purposes. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants the multi-purpose room. Because it's like you're on a Zoom call and your kids are running through.
Right.
Naked
I
and
find more
screaming.
closed spaces, do you find that
Yeah, a
with
little
your
bit of both.
architecture?
I mean, some place to get away and some place to entertain a
They all want
large
the
group of
family
people.
room kitchen for
Right.
sure, but they also want,
Right, somewhere to hide.
So how did that affect the way you designed the room? Are you, feeling, are they asking for more intimate spaces?
Yeah, but I think it gives you an opportunity to do some more intimate, different colors in one room and something totally different. I mean, they don't want it all the same
Right.
throughout, so it's absolutely more opportunities.
I think it goes back to what traditional or comfortable rooms, luxurious rooms and comfortable rooms. They want that comfortable sofa, they want,
Yeah.
not stark, at least I'm finding this, not super contemporary furniture, but,
Durable.
yeah.
Yeah, people are embracing the higher price points because, they're understanding that we're not, just gonna throw this piece away in 5 years. It's, people are investing now.
Investment pieces,
Yeah.
right.
So it's
And I
kind of
think
nice.
our job as a designer is to educate our clients and help them decide budget-wise, where are we gonna spend the money? What are the pieces that you're gonna have forever that are gonna transition with you? And that's the point of picking out really classic pieces that aren't gonna be too trendy or too dated and
What are
things that.
some of your favorite classic pieces? Can you cite
Tell us your sources.
Well, that's later in the conversation. I don't know, there's nothing wrong with a nice rolled arm sofa or a wood frame sofa that
Yeah.
could,
or a marble table?
yeah.
In this project, originally, I was really against it, but we bought an RH sofa, they waited 6 months, and I told them it was gonna be junk, and it was junk. I was so glad when it came in, because we returned it right away, and then we got a Marge Carson, and it was just like a car. I mean, it was just amazing, it felt good, it looked good, you just know it's gonna last forever, so.
Where do you encourage your clients to spend their money? Where is,
Well,
one
where
of the
they're
best spots?
Everywhere.
Or one of the best
Everywhere.
areas, yeah,
I like
everywhere.
it when they spend everywhere, right?
I mean,
we
is
get
it
to
in the
spend it first.
millwork? Is
Yeah.
it in,
You guys get what's left over, we get to spend it first.
That's true, that's true.
Whatever's
Yeah.
left, and I think you all know.
And then they have
there's
to make the
never enough
magic
money left
happen
for
with
the
limited
interiors. They build
budgets.
These beautiful homes,
Right?
and they have no
Yeah.
idea what the interiors
Yeah,
are
don't
gonna
worry.
cost. I think what we tend to
Right.
do with our clients is, give them a good, better, best budget.
Yeah.
And it's usually a mix.
Yeah.
Just like the way we dress and stuff like
Right,
that. So,
that's exactly.
invest in the more prominent pieces, whether they be the dining room
Right.
table or, again, buy classic things that aren't going
Yeah.
to, whether it's
What's
classic
some of
modern or
sort of your
classic
favorite
traditional.
ways to mix and match, I guess, the high end and the low end?
It definitely always depends. I think you have to understand how you're going to walk into the space, how you're going to experience going to experience it and what sort of the wow piece is. And sometimes that's in the architecture instead of
Right.
in the furnishing. It might also be in the artwork instead of a piece of furniture too. So.
Right, right.
We were talking about it in the office today, and one example that we came up with is we had a client that wanted to use this beautiful paisley wall covering from Gracie. It was very expensive. And we thought, how can we give her the same look without, you know, the $20,000 wall covering? My office is right near Paper Source, where they have all those beautiful papers,
right.
they're marbleized papers in
Right.
Paper Source. So we did a patchwork installation of these oversized Japanese papers, and it actually was more effective than the Gracie. So I think there's things like that that you help them massage their budget a little
Right.
bit, and they have to have a little faith in you. And we're going to put
Right.
wrapping paper on your walls.
Right.
But trust us, it's going to look okay. So it's things like that.
I have a friend that has a 3D printer, and we made these amazing Greek Roman intaglios out of plaster, and so we just printed about 100 of them, and they're not all perfect, but I mean, some plaster intaglios can go for $300 for each little piece, you know, so this was like a much better price point.
I bet you surprise yourselves when you come up with this, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Like, right, yeah.
you must find that in building too. I mean, ways to get
Yeah,
the
a lot
look
of
for
found
less.
objects that we work in, but just working with good old classic stone or limestone
Right.
and having the guys in the field do things with it.
And I think too, as interior designers, we have a lot of, I think with the problem of getting things during COVID, we've had a lot of luck with used furniture. I hate to use the term
Yeah.
used, but you know,
Secondhand.
going on all these sites and
Yeah.
finding, you know, the Baker sofa that's still perfectly good
Right.
and reupholstering it. They get it now, and you know, so all
Right.
those. What
Right.
do we want to say? Used, pre-owned,
And
pre-owned,
vintage
like
too,
cars. They're not
right?
used cars.
Yeah.
They're pre-owned
I mean,
cars.
Jasmine, I know you use a lot of vintage in your designs. Yeah.
And we just moved our office right next to our upholsterer because boy was she busy during COVID because clients are gonna order and wait for a sofa for, 6 to 8 months. She can make it in 6 to 8 weeks. So it's like, let's keep the money like near us, like around the
Source
city.
this. Do you want to share your source?
Maybe. Yes. So.
We found that too, using a
Yeah.
lot of custom-made furniture during this time, because it's, the
Yeah.
lead times are way, way too long.
Right, yeah. And vintage shopping, right? That people were really, because you couldn't get anything new. So you were either reupholstering or buying something
And sometimes that's a hard
vintage
sell to clients, like they want
Yeah.
everything new. And we're like,
Right.
give
It'll
it a
be new
look.
to you.
Right, and what's wrong with
Right.
a sofa that's well-built,
Right.
or a dining room table that just needs to be refinished, or something
Right.
like that? And But
Right.
some people still want it all new.
Right. So it seems like you all agree it's in the mix, of using the classic, the modern, the high-end with maybe a little bit of something more affordable. Do you have any good sources for that you can share?
Okay, we have found something new in our office. I never thought about it first, but Etsy. You can find the most unbelievable things on Etsy. We had a light fixture that we were doing for a client. It was like $7,000, and it had a selenite lens to it or something. We found the selenite on Etsy, cut to order, like for a fraction of the cost, and then had the frame made or something like that. But
Wow.
Etsy is a treasure trove of things, and I would never think of going to Etsy. So
Wow.
you think of it for like handicrafts, or at least I
Right,
did. but-
right, yeah.
Oh, the antiques and all sorts
Right.
of things on
Oh, wow.
Etsy. And of course, we all love Cherish and all these,
Right.
secondhand sites that are really great.
Yeah.
But try Etsy.
Yeah, it's like you have to know where to spend and where to save. That's awesome. Does anyone else have an example they want to share?
Lincoln Antique Mall. I always want to give her props because she's like 80 and she has an amazing place on Irving Park. She's been collecting for so many years and it's just such a great resource. So it's on Irving Park, Lincoln Antique Mall. She's got a great eye.
Yeah.
Oh, my other good source that I love is Live Auctioneers. If you all are not on Live Auctioneers, oh my God.
That stresses me out.
Oh, it's so much fun. They consolidate all the auctions across the country, even in Europe.
Ooh.
And you could just browse for days on end. And you can also put in your favorite, you're looking for Yadro figures or something like that, or parchment
client has them.
furniture, or, Saarinen, or I don't know. And
Yeah.
things will pop up as they generate in sales. And you bid online, and it's really good. So get on Live Auctioneers.
Okay, that's good to know.
That you put in LaGrange.
The Antique Mall in LaGrange?
The modern Modern Hill?
The new
Oh, right. So
Yes.
Jasmine and I had a shopping expedition, yes. It's full of mid-century furniture. It's called Modern Hill, and it's
Yes.
actually in Countryside, Illinois. And they have like the most incredible collection of mid-century furniture, and they have a really good website too, and Instagram. So, and they ship and refurbish and everything. It's a really cool place
it's
to browse. Have you
huge.
ever been there, Michael? It's
been a
near
while.
you. Yeah, they moved warehouses, but it's really something to see.
Yeah, but it's a good example of what we were talking about before, because that used to be called mid-century modern.
Right,
Right.
right,
And now it's
right.
traditional, you know?
Right.
So it's
Right.
constantly
Right.
going, oh, I was supposed to not do
Right.
that. Put your hands,
But that's the
constantly going
problem
around in
with
circles,
labels, yeah.
right?
I think what's interesting is how the antique business has changed so dramatically, and everything is online. There's no antiques, there are very
Right.
few antique stores. But what was refreshing, I think, is to see that we had the antique show back here last week.
Oh, right.
And the San Francisco Antique Show is going strong again, and it's nice to see this resurgence after COVID, to
Yeah.
actually see things in
In
person.
person.
And, you know, we all know First Dibs, but I don't know, I feel like First Dibs has gotten really diluted. Do you guys agree? Like, it's, since Michael Boudreau sold it, it's no longer the same. They're selling shoes, they're selling,
Yeah,
Oh,
they do. They
everything.
sell bags,
yeah,
handbags,
they sell
shoes,
anything.
everything, yeah.
Old or vintage or pre-owned.
Right, it's not just
It's not as
furniture.
focused.
Loop Loft.
Yes,
Right, that's
she
a
has
great place in
stuff.
Chicago.
It's
Great
fabulous.
things.
Yeah,
And it's
South
nice to
Loop
go and
Loft.
see it, and the fact that it's always a fresh assortment. It's kind of like
Right.
doing all of the shopping for you.
Yes,
which is
Beth
great.
goes to Europe like every 3 months or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, that's a
And it's
great
nice that it's
source.
local too, so
Right.
you're supporting a local person as
You know
well.
who's back right here in the neighborhood is Stuart Grannon, who had architectural
Oh, right,
artifacts. And he's
right.
opened a new building materials,
Right.
I think, too.
Right.
Light fixtures.
So he
Right.
just opened, it's kind of like a cafe,
Right, I
party
haven't been.
place,
Have you
antique
been? That's
store, and
supposed
he's
to be
right
really
down
cool.
the street here.
Yeah, yeah.
so it's
And
a-
also locally, the Golden Triangle, Doug Ventress owns that. Yeah, that's really cool for
But the smaller antique
vintage.
stores have just disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
sad. But
Yeah.
change the
So,
times.
okay, so I think we should play a round, like a quick round, rapid fire questions.
Oh,
So
boy.
just,
Oh, boy.
you know, say the
You
first
tell us
thing
about
that
that.
comes to your mind, and then we'll go through your projects after that. So this will just be fun, don't overthink it. Okay, Leonardo da Vinci or Van Gogh?
Da Vinci.
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh.
Da Vinci.
House in the country or city loft?
Country.
Both.
I was going to say both. Both. To have a balance.
Can we do both?
Sure.
Sure.
If your budget's big
Architecture.
enough, why not? Why not?
We're making it up.
Yeah, yeah. Contemporary photography or an oil painting?
Oil.
Both.
Oh, contemporary photography. I'm going on
Okay.
a deep dive
Yeah.
right now looking for contemporary photography. Yeah.
Photography, yeah.
Okay, okay.
You know who just died if you're into contemporary photography? Melvin Sokolsky. Does anyone know his work? He just died, and it's like climbing in value. He was a fashion photographer, and he did, maybe you recognize the ladies in the bubbles. It was a very famous,
Oh,
fashion
right.
ladies in these
Right,
bubbles.
right,
Look
right.
up Melvin Sokolsky. His stuff's really
Ooh.
hot right now.
That sounds great. Okay, what about wallpaper or Venetian plaster?
Wallpaper.
Wallpaper.
Yeah, that's you for sure.
Wallpaper.
Plaster. That's easy.
Okay. Polished nickel or unlacquered brass?
It's hard. Both for me on this one.
Yeah.
Lacquer brass.
That's a hard one. I've used them both on jobs. I think you can
Yeah.
mix metals. I think it's good to
Right.
have both. So
Right.
if you're okay with some maintenance on
Yeah.
the unlacquered brass, but nickel is classic. I like
Yeah,
that.
brass for sure.
Okay, okay. TV or artwork over the fireplace?
Artwork.
Artwork.
Artwork, but we have sold our soul a few times with
Yeah.
framed TVs or that one that the painting
Yeah.
disappears and the TV's underneath.
Yeah, the artwork that's not the shape of a TV.
Right.
Or what about if you hide the TV in a cabinet?
Yeah.
Sure, to the right of the.
Yes. Yes.
Flat front or shaker cabinets?
What did you say?
Flat front or shaker cabinets?
I guess flat.
Shaker.
I think shaker.
Flat.
Okay, okay. Color or pattern? You're both.
Yeah.
You
Color
could
on the
not
walls,
choose.
pattern on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Can I say neither?
Oh, see, two totally
Kind of
different.
joke,
Yeah.
but I'm probably more texture than
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah,
No opinion. I've used them all. I don't think there's a set response.
Yeah.
It depends on the client, depends on the job.
yeah,
For me, pattern, because it can be a lot of things,
yeah.
From-
Okay. Right,
beams to floor to
Right,
stone, a lot of things.
right, okay. What about, and we touched on this earlier, antiques or custom-made pieces?
Antiques.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, no.
I like to say vintage instead of antiques. Antiques,
Yeah.
as we all know, it has to be at least 100 years, so vintage.
Right.
I think you always need to bring something old into the space or something
Yeah.
to make it feel real, so.
I agree.
I would say
Antiques.
custom. I mean, the kitchen is the most probably modern room in the house, always.
Right.
Even, no matter how old the house is.
Yeah. Okay, what about stripes and plaids or damask and florals?
Damask and florals. For me.
Stripes and plaids.
I'm going to go with both.
I have to pass on that one.
Pass.
What are you talking about?
Okay, how about, what is your favorite cabinetry finish?
I'm not really sure. I love high gloss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or color or style?
Right. I love a high gloss lacquer and like a wire brushed oak, so.
Oh, that
kind
would be
of
so pretty.
Run the gamut.
Yeah.
I was going to say high gloss lacquer, which we do a lot of on ceilings and walls, but I also have a job where there's wire brush oak next to a high gloss lacquered ceiling. So I think
Yeah.
it's one or the,
Yeah.
it's both.
Okay.
Yeah, probably anything in quarter sawn oak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, classic. Not traditional, classic. Okay, so is there something in the design world that you want to see go? You know, something you're really tired of?
White subway
Okay.
for me.
Something to go.
I'm going to say oversized furniture, sofas that are too deep, that aren't really proportioned to people, and all that restoration
Yeah.
hardware stuff. A lot of it's just oversized. People don't realize it doesn't fit in their rooms, and it's just oversized furniture. It's not in keeping.
I know I have a long list for that, but
Yeah, there's probably a long
Nothing comes
list,
to
yeah.
I
mind.
think the thing for me is TVs over the fireplace.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
probably that's a good one.
Yeah.
yeah.
Shift left, that's on its way
Constant.
out anyway, right?
I think this,
I think so.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, a little overdone.
yeah.
And conversely, what is your go-to all-time favorite thing that you want to always use, or, you know, a trend that you want to maybe avoid using the word trend, but something you want to see stay?
Personally, for me, wallpaper. It's been around since, Egyptian times, and it's just beautiful. I just love it. Yeah.
millwork always seems to be the differentiator in a space. Like you can tell that a space feels richer, warmer. So in whatever capacity that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to recently redo my home a couple of years ago and got to use a lot of my favorites that I'd been stuffing in drawers and never been able to use. And there was a beautiful fabric from Chelsea Editions, a silk embroidered with bugs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's little like jewel tone,
Yeah.
little like beads and
Beads,
everything.
yeah.
And I don't know, richly embroidered fabrics and wall coverings, and I don't know. I'd love to see
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
What
That's
did you
cool.
put it on?
Draperies.
Oh, this one's
Beautiful,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Something we want to see stay, you
Yeah,
said?
something that you'll always use again and again.
Good craftsmen, probably, I think, as
Yeah.
opposed to anything specific, because there are fewer and fewer
Yeah,
people that do really, really
Right.
nice stuff.
yeah. Okay.
One more, upholstered
Sure.
doors are having a comeback, so I'm glad.
Upholstered doors?
Yes.
Oh,
So-
do any of you
We've
have
done some
upholstered
leather
doors? That's cool.
doors
Yes.
with studs and
Ooh.
leather upholstery on the wall.
Yeah, so it's nice
Okay.
to see that coming back.
Where would you use that? What room?
You could put it anywhere, but we put it in a library, office, a bedroom.
Yeah, that seems like something you'd use in a library, yeah, or an
We've
office.
done a door into a kitchen that's leather upholstered with a circular, porthole
Oh,
and
right,
studs.
right.
And
Oh, that sounds
you
so
know,
beautiful.
saw it at the Racket Club here in Chicago, and the client's like, I want that in my house, and
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah.
very clubby.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So, okay, so should we take a look at maybe some of your projects? I think this is Michael's, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about this project, where this house is, who the clients were, and what their directive was to you?
This project is in Lake Geneva, on Lake Geneva.
My future lake home?
On the north side of, and they'd had a few houses up there, so they're pretty familiar with it. But they really liked shingle style, kind of stone and wood. And this we made is more of a compound. It was kind of a mix of different things. As that's, had been built over time,
Yeah, it looks
maybe.
like it's been added
Yeah.
on to.
That was kind of the idea. So it was like there was a main house that had So I think multi-generational feel to it, a little bit of history built into it, but the furniture inside is pretty contemporary.
See, this is
Modern.
sort of that mix, of very classic
Right.
and modern with the stone fireplace and the plush, oversized sofa and that little pop of yellow.
And the wood, there's a wood ceiling, but it's done a little differently with no crown moldings. But it's a mix of both.
Stunning.
This is a bar area that they wanted to be somewhat, used by the kids and the adults, which is kind of hard to do. But
Kids meaning like teenagers, young
Yeah.
adults, or little kids?
they're kind of younger,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, start them early. This is actually the entry. So we brought a lot of the exterior materials into the inside of this. So it was intended to be a space that wasn't there originally that connected two buildings. So that's why you see the shingles from the outside on the inside.
That just feels so warm with the treatment on the ceiling.
Yeah, it's supposed to be something that kind of was added later.
I think this would age really nice. I don't think it looks of any particular period. It's not too
Right.
contemporary, it's not too
Right.
traditional.
We took a lot of
It's
kind of the old traditional details and then stripped them down a little bit.
Right.
I don't think it would date itself.
Right.
No. I think you accomplished what you did. I went on your website and you said you designed spaces that look to the past but are decidedly contemporary.
Then that's kind of, I think, what we
Yeah.
all do in one way or
And I
another.
think this project beautifully exemplifies that.
Yeah, you could put any kind of light fixture in there and it'll work.
And is this it for Michael's? I think so. Okay. Okay, so. That's Jasmine. Okay, you want to talk about Jasmine's? Sure. Okay, Elizabeth, so you want to tell us where this project is and what your directive was from the clients?
Sure, so this is a historic home in Hinsdale. It had caught fire during a roof repair, is that right? And so the water damage was such that they were able to take the house down to the studs. So the client, this is definitely the most traditional project that we've ever worked on, and her direction really was to maintain the historic integrity of the home. So we didn't add any can lights, we kept all decorative fixtures throughout. I believe those stained glass windows were either restored or repaired.
The lower ones were there and were previously restored. The upper ones were discovered when they pulled the plaster off that.
Okay. And so for this project, we actually worked with them exclusively on the construction finishes and then consulted with them on the furnishing component. So she was halfway through redecorating the house when the fire occurred, so they had all of this furniture that was in storage. So what we got to work with her on is sort of rearranging, doing new layouts. How do we make it fresh and appropriate for their lifestyle now? They have 3 kids. But she had said, I think she was like 45. She's like, I'm a 45-year-old. I'm the oldest 45-year-old you'll ever meet. She really was in touch with the history of the home and honoring that. The walls are hand painted by an artisan that she had found. I think he was local to the area. These
Gorgeous.
really cool bird handles from, I think it was Phil Rich. But she had done a lot of work in conjunction with us and just sort of exploring the history of the home and what would have been done when the house was originally built.
How old was the home, do you recall?
Is it 1910?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Stunning.
Oh, show the kitchen though, will you? Because I think that was fun too. So I think the addition of the skylight, the materials, there's something about it. It just has a really warm, layered texture feel to it. So, you know, I feel like this bridges the line of feeling super classic while also
Right.
feeling of the time.
Right, that hood is amazing with the
Yeah.
brass straps, and you sort of bring in some of the traditional elements with those dark drapery
Yep.
panels, yeah. And it looks like the
Who did
base
the hood?
cabinets are a little more ornate,
Mitchell and Mitchell, maybe?
yeah,
Beautiful.
right. So it's striking that balance
Exactly,
between
yeah.
traditional and modern, but it looks so appropriate for this home. And those light fixtures, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
thank
really
you.
cool. Very beautiful. Okay, so this is a project that I recently interviewed Jasmine for, and she designed this house for a rock star. Does anyone know who Jimmy Chamberlain is? No. He's the drummer for the Smashing Pumpkins and Jasmine's client. And so I had the pleasure of interviewing Jasmine and Jimmy about this project. So do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about the
Sure.
project?
Yeah, it was really interesting because, I mean, I grew up on the Smashing Pumpkins, and I didn't know that I was going to that house. And they were just going to hire me for pillows in their living room. And I was like, and it was a long drive for me. And I said, I looked at their house. I'm like, well, maybe I can get the whole room. I'm not sure. We ended up getting the whole house, which was incredible. But it started with just really pushing them with color and introducing them to Fornasetti and, you know, like first dibs and things like that. So it was kind of a fun, acid trippy kind of approach to traditional in some of the rooms. But it was just a lot of fun. So.
And
yeah.
here you use their existing cabinetry,
Yes.
so you didn't really do much in the kitchen except
No.
for repaint the
Repaint,
kitchen
new
cabinets, right?
counters.
Which you can do if you have high-quality cabinets.
Yep, new backsplash. Yep,
Where was
Right.
the house, Jasmine?
it's in Riverwoods.
Riverwoods.
Yeah. And so we went into, you know, traditional plates that we collected from the internet, just changed out all the lighting, you know, chairs, reupholstered it with Christian Lacroix fabric. So that was kind of the fun part. Introducing Christian Lacroix and like Fornasetti, that was kind of the main drive. And they have like 5 cats and 2 dogs and, you know, 2 kids, so they really nest in their home. So this was interesting. That's a vintage puppet. It's kind of haunting if you look at it up close, but it's very cool.
Where's the puppet? What's the fire?
Oh,
Above
yeah.
the fireplace.
Yes. And it's from the 1800s. The tapestry has survived like all the world wars. I mean, it's older and, you know, it's just so cool to be in that room. It just has a real vibe to it. And this is where he blasts his music every Saturday. And yeah, it's just a
And that's the
fun
March
room.
Carson sofa, right?
The March Carson sofa.
That you talked about
Yep.
earlier, right?
Yeah, so that's his actually it's their office. So it's a collection of his band and, you know,
Other rock stars.
yep.
And that's Fornasetti wallpaper again, right?
Yes, yep.
Who drove the design? Was she more of a traditionalist, or he was, or it was your input?
It was a lot of my input in the beginning, and then his wife got really excited, and then she got the bug for Fornasetti. She's obsessed now, so they're still collecting like crazy, which is really fun. Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And I like that you introduced them to sort of what the color palette would be in the project by presenting them that design book by Hans Slonim,
Oh,
right?
yes,
I thought that
yes.
was a really cool way of sort of giving the clients an expectation, I guess.
Yeah.
Or an idea of what the design direction was that you wanted to go in.
Exactly. I left the book at their house. I said, "Sit with this book for the weekend. It's kind of crazy, but I think it's good. I think it's your vibe, and you have the scale to pull this off." And Monday morning, they said, "Okay, we're all in. Let's do it."
And that's what Lori, the wife, said I interviewed Lori too, the wife of the drummer, and she said she hired Jasmine because she felt like she was the only designer in Chicago that wasn't afraid of color.
Thanks to her.
And they really went for color. And you go for color too. Look how
Oh,
great your
yes.
jacket is.
I like color.
Okay, so this is Jessica
My
LaGrange's
So speaking
project.
of not a lot of color, more neutral colors. This is a project at 1500 Lakeshore Drive, one of the most beautiful, I think, apartment buildings in the city of Chicago. It was for a couple, I'd say, maybe late 50s, early 60s, I'm not sure. They moved, they wanted a city pied-à-terre. So they had a house in like Glen Ellen, and this was going to be their city place. And the husband's been a big collector. You see a Bertoya sculpture over here to the left. He collected the Carl Springer table and chairs. They were all in storage, so he was hoping for a new setting in which to incorporate all these things. So we talked about the beautiful hand-embroidered wall covering and the rock crystal chandelier. This is their dining room. Behind the dining room is the kitchen. We enlarged the opening, so there was a bit of a relationship between the kitchen. This is their bedroom, but she drove the design. Again, a Gracie wall covering, beautiful silk carpets, the Murano glass chandelier, simple but yet elegant window treatments. Very, again, soft colors, not as bright. We were talking about the photographer that photographed this. We had a little conversation before you all came. His name's Douglas Friedman. If anyone doesn't,
What do you
if you don't
call
follow,
him?
the Fascinator.
The
That's
Fascinator.
so. I think he's listed on Instagram as the Fascinator. Follow
you
this
don't
guy.
follow
He is a rock star, and we were lucky enough to get him to photograph this job. And they all have a very kind of dark, sexy look to them. All his photographs. So follow Douglas Friedman.
That room does, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. What
This
room
is the library. We put in new paneling. Again, Bertoya sculpture that they were collecting. I think the fireplace is really beautiful. It's hard to see here, but it's a cast glass fireplace, kind of a nod to David Adler. He used a lot of cast glass. You know, the envelope of the building is very traditional. This interior was very traditional, but we were able to incorporate some, very modern pieces.
Yeah, that sculpture.
So this is
wow.
really fascinating. This is the entrance to the apartment, and there's a lot of terrazzo in this building. So this is a terrazzo floor with metal or brass inlays. So we worked on this project with Steve Rugo. I will give him credit for this floor. And I can't remember the name of the artist, but the wife loves to collect contemporary art. We had Hervé van der Straten light fixtures on either side. But I don't know, this floor kind of just hipped it up a little bit.
Yeah. Wow, that really pulls you in. That's the entry?
Yes, that's the entry
Yeah.
into the apartment.
Yeah.
And then
That's
the
great.
living room is off to the left. Again, a traditional envelope. You can see the beautiful arched openings and keystones and beautiful plaster work everywhere.
Is the ceiling lacquered in the living room?
Yes, the ceiling is, that's why you see the reflection. Yeah. We love lacquering ceilings. This is the kitchen. Again, a traditional style of cabinet, but we did everything in high gloss black lacquer. Some kind of 40s French stools from a company, Metaliano, here in Chicago. Designed a more contemporary light fixture, plaster hood, very active stone. I think it was a black, I can't remember what marble, but all honed. But even though it was done in black, it still felt light-filled and, I don't know, approachable. The black, again, made it kind of sexy, I think.
That's
All
very
new
cool.
kitchen.
Yeah, that looks stunning because you don't see too many black lacquer kitchens.
Yes.
That's a risk.
Hand-painted lacquer, that wasn't sprayed, so it had to be a more traditional way of using the paint. So it looked like it had been there for years. We didn't want like a machine
Right,
sprayed.
because it's more perfect and
Right.
uniform
So
then.
many, many
Right.
layers.
Right, right. And I love the little pop of art in the artwork.
Yep.
Or the pop of color in the artwork. Very cool.
Row or something, I can't
Right.
remember.
Right.
We added the beams to the ceiling. I had a little hard time with that, but Steve wanted to add the beams. He felt it gave it, but there are no beams anywhere else in the place, but whatever, it was
Yeah.
fine.
Are they also painted black?
Yeah,
Yeah,
The
all
glossy?
black lacquer, yeah, glossy, high gloss.
Yeah, very cool. Does anyone have any questions for any of the designers regarding any of the projects or anything else?
Come on.
Oh, thank God.
Go on Etsy, that's my tip of the day.
Oh, we have a question.
Oh, yes, hi.
Have you ever had a client that you didn't mesh well with?
Oh,
They're all nodding.
How about
That-
you answer that?
of course, you always have people, and I tell this to people when they interview us right away, that this is going to be like a marriage, a long-term friendship. We need to trust each other and respect each other, and otherwise it's not going to work. And sure, we've parted ways. Not always nice. That's why you get a retainer, okay? That's why you get a retainer, so make sure you're not left high and dry, but it happens, right? It's
Yeah, it
happened
happens
to you.
all the time. It happens all the time. Sometimes that would be a good experience for one of your employees to take it on and learn from that, maybe.
Yeah, lessons learned, as we
Right,
say.
lessons
You know,
learned.
what did we do wrong, or what did they do wrong, and
Yeah.
hopefully you learn from it and
Yeah,
you
I-
grow from it.
I've often said while we're in the design profession, we're also in the business of people. So it's really about the relationship. I have felt in meetings like the shift where, okay, I feel like they really trust me or us now, and they're going to listen to our advice, our opinions, and you get so much further. So it's like putting that upfront investment into the relationship is so important. And what we have all found out the hard way is that if it's not a good relationship, it really stunts your creativity. You don't like working on it, your team doesn't like working on it, and you want it to be like, this is fun, this should be fun.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Another
Design is
thing
fun.
is just to be patient with those. Sometimes you have those, and I think as you go through, and if you're patient with them, and then the house is under construction, and they come back to you and say, you know, I get it now,
They're believing.
right? And then
Right.
you kind of, everything kind of restarts sometimes, when they
Yeah.
kind of start to see it come together,
Right.
and the whole team working together, and then they kind of, it rejuvenates them as well.
The project I showed, we'd worked for this family. I think those are the best projects when they're referrals from other family members, or you have a rapport and they trust you. And I think this was maybe the third or fourth family member.
wow.
And they just, those are the most successful projects, are the
Yeah.
ones where the clients trust you.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
we're problem solvers, and in one way or another,
We're
even if that is the
psychiatrists and
problem,
therapists.
yeah, you still want to solve the problem, whether it's what the fireplace looks like or whether they like what you're doing. So it's,
I've never understood why school doesn't offer a class on like the psychology of dealing with your clients. Like, there needs to be a class
yeah,
in this.
constrology.
Yeah, constrology, I like that. I
Yeah.
think that's so, and you learn as you mature in your business and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but somebody should teach that.
Yeah.
To Elizabeth's point, we always, I have in my contract, have fun. So I think that's a really good thing to, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, just try to have fun because you get to design your house,
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
We are not saving lives here.
Right, it's design, it's fun, right. I know, I would stress too, we built a house over, what shade of cream do I want my kitchen cabinets to be? Because there's a lot of them.
And it's just paint, and it can be
Right,
changed.
right, yes. And which natural
dying.
stain do I want for my hardwood floor? Right, that's why we need experts like you to come in and make those decisions. So, well, thank you. It was great getting to see everybody and interviewing everybody. And pick up, I know there's a couple design magazines floating around, the
I think we have
merchandise
to have a
around the
shout
mart.
out to the Mart, and as designers, we need to keep this place going and come and use it. It's sad to see how it's kind of getting smaller and smaller, and we are so lucky as a community to have this
To
here.
have this resource
And
here,
so many
yeah.
cities, I heard this from people last night, they're in from
Yeah.
Iowa, Ohio, or different cities, and we are so lucky to have this resource here. And we
Right.
got to keep it going, so
Right.
a plug for the Mart and all they do for our community and everything. I think it's huge.
I think that's important. Thank you for bringing that
Yeah,
up.
we're lucky to
Thank
have you.
you. Thank you.